Cue the music, let's go. I'm your boy Ro, OG member of the Orange Bowl Boys, and welcome to this edition of Student of the Game Rundown. I just want to go ahead and after watching the film, I get all these thoughts that pour into my head, and I just want to share them with the Miami Hurricanes fandom. First and foremost, the Carson Beck era is upon us. He was 20 of 31, 64.5%, and I just noticed the stark contrast from a year ago. I appreciate Carson Beck's PhD in line diagnosis and coverage diagnosis. Notre Dame, listen, got to give a lot of credit to Notre Dame. Well-coached team, and they didn't necessarily make it always easy for Carson on the back end, where one of the noticeable differences was that Carson wasn't spooked by any of the coverages. He never looked panicked. He never looked rattled. If it wasn't there, you saw couple times he just checked it down, and those were great plays. It just shows like this hierarchy, this efficacy of quarterback play, and that comes with experience. So Cam Ward was special last year, but he didn't come in with this huge big game experience, right? He wasn't coming from the SEC. He was coming from a defunct Pac-12 that was falling apart, played in some big games, remarkable talent, not taking anything away. But it was just one of those things when he comes up to the line of scrimmage, you can definitely see a lot of confidence up here. The offense under Shannon Dawson, it looks similar. There's a lot of things and concepts that we ran a year ago. One of the things for Carson Beck that I really liked, and go check out the student of the game, was kind of like our plays off mesh release, mesh return. Just some of the counters that we had, very, very, very cool. Again, no interceptions, too, for Carson Beck. I mean, I don't want to give him the title of game manager because that's not what he is. He's beyond that. He's not a game manager. That's not what he was brought to Miami to do. He was brought to Miami with a lot of talent around him, a great offensive line, which we'll touch on. But he was brought to Miami essentially to go ahead and shoulder them into the playoffs potentially. But against a Notre Dame defense, and I saw a lot of complex coverages this week from them. They had relentless motor. Doesn't mean they necessarily got there all the time, but with Carson Beck, under center with that kind of a game, 2 touchdowns, I felt he was 1 touchdown away from kind of being more than just like, okay, a game manager. He actually took over that game and he was the clear-cut star. But when you have that kind of a clear-cut 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, I thought he did really, really well. Listen, the defense cleaned up its communication. Last year, you knew over and over and over that they seemed routinely confused. A lot of pointing, not knowing where to go with the ball before the ball was snapped. A lot of just getting decimated in the flats underneath. I never felt like it was overly complicated. We were just overly confused. That got cleared up. Stylistically, simplistically, I don't see it as complicated as a defense from a year ago. I really don't. There's a lot of emphasis to get upfield, right? Which is good. That plays in Miami's athletes' hands. They want to get upfield. They want to penetrate. They want to make plays. Defense was asked to be in man coverage. The coverage was routinely good. We had a couple busts, and we highlighted that on Student of the Game, why that happened on those couple coverage busts. One of the big pass play games for Notre Dame was off the backs of that. And then obviously there was a touchdown where we only rushed 3. I feel like that wasn't necessarily a communication thing. I mean, the pre-snap communication is what's cleared up. There were some post-snap communication things we can clear up, sure. But in week 1, I was very confident what I saw with the defense. I think it's going to routinely play fast. It's going to play faster than a year ago. It's going to be more aggressive than a year ago. And like I said, little wrinkles here, little wrinkles there, but by far, my takeaway after doing the student of the game was it was definitely not as complicated a year ago, but it was definitely effective. So good to see that. Malachi Tony is that guy. All right. We've been doing this for a while, but when you get 6 catches, 82 yards, a touchdown, that 28-yard strike that he had in quarter number 2 with that play, it was remarkable, right? And it was so set up. It was beautiful. I mean, you see him kind of flatten out his route, but he stems it at the top and he gets to safety. He was kind of like stiff-hipped in that moment. He gets stuck in the mud and then he just drives over. And it was good. Just utilized him in that mesh return route, get him the ball kind of quick. But he was just advanced, 17-year-old kid, but he was advanced in his years. I mean, he didn't play like a 17-year-old freshman, so it's rare. I think if there's a unicorn trait with Malachi Tony, that's what it is, right? That he did not, it wasn't too big for the moment. I like the way they used him. I did. They featured him. in that game, he was the featured part of the wide receiver room. He really was. So I think that question could be put to bed. You'll see it moving forward. You have some other questions at the wide receiver room, but who potentially could be a game-breaking wide receiver number one? It's Malachi Toney at this point until proven otherwise. Still got some talent. I like what the room was. I agree with what Shannon, after watching the field, what Shannon Dawson said, is a deeper room from a year ago. And a lot of the emphasis was like, who was going to replace Xavier Restrepo? And in this case, in thinking of Xavier Restrepo and thinking back on this, didn't necessarily see the choice routes that Xavier Restrepo would do from a year ago, a lot of those option routes. This wasn't necessarily that. I think in that case, I didn't see a lot of choice routes now that I think about that. I think that Carson Beck and Shannon had great conversations, and they've played off what they do well, right? They've played off what they do well. Malachi Toney's game, he's just going to hit to his route. He's going to make the adjustments, and he's going to get open. So good to see that there for the University of Miami, that they do have somebody. Listen, you could go back and watch that film. The University of Miami won in the trenches. They really did. It was impressive to see. Offensive line, Alex Mirabal gets a lot of credit for the great wall of Mirabal, and we talk about communication, but one of the things about the great wall of Mirabal is just how good they can protect the quarterback, especially in the face of adversity in the terms of blitzing. They're really good. Go back last year, really good. They don't really get beat clean routinely on blitzes or beat clean routinely from, guys across the way. So when you have that, you give the quarterback protection. But I thought the blitz pickups were nice. I've seen styles of those blitz pickups from a year ago. They'll use some slide protection, fan protection. They'll go ahead and block it straight up. They use the running back. You got to credit them. Listen, Canes fans, it's not just about the offensive line in terms of the protection. The Great Wall of Mirabal includes those running backs, okay? I want everybody to know that, and especially in this game. You'll see it highlighted on Student of the Game where the running backs are actually giving Carson Beck that extra time needed in order to go ahead and make those plays. So really good job by the offensive line. Defensive line, you saw it. The Notre Dame game plan, and we featured this as well, it was to get the ball out in the perimeter. That was my key to the game. We have to go ahead and check CJ Carr simply because they're going to want to get him comfortable, because you can't really live in 3, or better said 5 to 7 step drop series, because then the defense can pin its ears. And at the end of the game, when they had to do it, right, we had back-to-back sacks at the end of the game. So when you have this game plan to get the ball out quick, don't you take a lot of the tip of the spear out of the Miami defense. And I've seen teams over the course of years do this. Miami is developing this hellacious pass rush under Mario Cristobal. He's getting the guys, and credit to Jason Taylor. I mean, they're getting upfield when they can, but how do you blunt that? How do you negate that? You throw it out to the perimeter. Quick screen. And that was the game plan for CJ Carr in essence. But again, when it mattered, we outrushed them, right? They came in saying they had a vaunted rush attack, best running back rated PFF in that University. Miami held up at the point of attack. Defensive tackles did well. We had maybe concerns who's going to step up in that position. You saw that play that we featured on Student Game. Justin Scott goes ahead and blows that up, or gets that fumble recovery. Great play. Scott Dam. It was good. We beat them up. They know it. Okay, they're gonna go back and watch up that film, and there's nothing they can say about it. We beat them up in the trenches, so it was good to see. Obviously, you saw the conservatism coming out. The University of Miami in the second half had 18 runs versus 6 passes. We relied on that. I mean, we know who Mario Cristobal is, and in this game it showed itself. His DNA, he's a rarity. He's an offensive line coach, right, by trade. Nobody runs in between the tackles and the guards more than the University of Miami. They do it with wrinkles. We try to say that it's not the same running play. I can promise you that. And this week we try to show you different styles of inside runs that we use, different ways we block it up front. But again, it needs to be one of those things too that we have to have that play. My personal opinion was, you see so much mesh in this offense in terms of the offense, in terms of passing, and then you have a mesh return. We're going to have counters off that. We're going to have counters off our run game. I know we do, and I've seen them before, but you can't get in that situation where everybody's in the back of the recess of their mind, we're getting a little too conservative. In terms of the film, Yeah, we gave a lot of cushion underneath late when they were moving the ball. We were just like, don't give up the quick score. Don't give up the quick score. So, Heatherman's already proven that he will do that. I mean, we saw it on film. He's going to play a little bend, but don't break. Maybe in the future he decides to pin his ears as well, because stylistically that's what the defense does. So when you're asking him to kind of hold back, it just seemed like there was a gap there. And again, you saw the big disparity: 18 runs in the second half versus 6 passes. Sure, we chewed up some of the clock, but we put it on the backs of a kicker who was kind of unproven. And kudos to Miami Hurricanes and Mario Cristobal for making that call. I thought Auburn was going to be the kicker at one point because he was more the notoriable name, but in this case, that's not what happened. And finally, I think the University of Miami looked the part. I thought, in terms of stats, 324 to 314, we held the edge. In the red zone, we were 4 of 5. Davis' 47-yard field goal, we just talked about that, put us up with about 104 left. That was a heavyweight fight. That was a heavyweight contention. That put us in heavyweight contention, better said. And I just really appreciate what the University of Miami put on film. It was a fun watch, different era. We're not going to have the number one offense in the country this year. I just want to go ahead and temper those expectations. We don't need the number one offense in the country this year. We just needed a better defense a year ago, and we're a playoff team. So I still think the University of Miami offense is hard to stop. You still have to stop that inside run, and there's enough creativity and plays from Shannon Dawson from a year ago and on film this week against Notre Dame to keep things interesting. So for the final time, I just wanted to give you that quick recap. Let me know what you think of this style. I can continue to do it. But with that said, I'm your boy Ro, OG member of the Orange Bowl Boys. Stay safe, my friends, and bang.